going to red card the middle wave to try to hit Akali. Now, if you were Akali in this case, and let's say even if you're Fizz, so if you're Fizz, if you're Akali, if you're Zed, if you're Talon, if you're, well, Talon's a little bit different. If you're whatever champion, right, who can't actually approach the wave, but you want to actually try to get the wave to come into you, or you're just any really melee champion, you can stand next to your backline waves, and that'll actually prompt most TF players to try to red card it, in which then you can just essentially click down to the south side of mid lane and avoid it. Okay, this is just a bait. What's happening right now? Yep, he autos. He doesn't red card. Waits. Akali Qs. He knows Akali's Qs on cooldown. Gold cards, and now this is gonna get a little weird because this might actually be a mistake. If now he tries to gold card Akali, what's going to end up happening is these casters are going to jump onto Nemesis. This melee might tank onto him, but he's going to essentially kite away this way. So let's see what happens. Okay, he gold cards, minions hit him, he autos again, and as you can see, the trade is actually kind of even. And the reason for this is because Nemesis ended up trading inside of a wave, in which then he got hit, and likewise Nemesis hit Akali with an auto and a gold card, therefore the minion, therefore the damage evens out. Okay. Autos again, gold cards again, and now it's different because now there's only 2 minions essentially hitting Nemesis, so it's not so bad, and he can kite backwards essentially. Now that's exactly what he's doing. He's walking back. He's continuing to space out his abilities properly, and we're just waiting. Again, keeping the wave relatively in the middle and not actually throwing it into it too much. Now, what's happening now is the lane state actually changes. Now, what's going on is we actually have 1 blue, 2 blue, 3 blue, 4 blue, 5. So we have 6 blues versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reds. So what's actually happening in this lane is that this wave is pushing into caps. So now, because it's pushing into caps, and relative to the proximity of the next wave, which is the cannon, which is going to be, in this case, sorry about that. Let me write a little bit neater. That is the 3rd wave, which is going to be right here. We want to kill this minion wave faster before this next 3rd wave ends up locking. If the 3rd wave locks for Akali, this is really good. Because what ends up happening then is Nemesis can't get the bounce back on the 4th wave, can't get the bounce back on the 5th wave. This also allows Akali and Nemesis to be forced to play inside of a lane state where you're playing right here with the 3rd minion locked, with the 3rd wave locked, while the enemy jungler is finishing his clear. Now, we're playing in like, what, patch 9 point, what patch is it, guys? Does anyone know what fucking patch it is? I don't even know anymore. But jungle spawn timers and jungle clear timers with some champions is actually reduced. So you're going to be getting ganked a little sooner because of the changes onto Gromp. Now, relative to how the routes are, in this case, we're not going to go too deep into this right now, because one, I don't even know who the enemy jungler is. Yeah, so you essentially want to be very, very aware of these things and try to bounce back as fast as possible in this matchup. Okay, now, obviously, there's exceptions. 9.525? Okay. Again, there's exceptions. Now, let's say that the enemy jungler wants to, if your jungler, let's say, is not Nocturne, it's a champion that actually wants to duel the enemy jungler inside of his jungler inside of the river, then you don't actually have to bounce back wave 4 or bounce back wave 5. At that point, it's potentially okay to build this wave so that by the time that the scuttle ends up spawning at around 3 minutes and 15 seconds, you've essentially built wave 2, wave 3, and are crashing inwards. Maybe potentially getting the bounce back on wave 5 or wave 4 or whatever. But we're kind of just setting up for the scuttle take here on the left hand side of the jungle. So here, Nemesis should just push the wave. He should just hard push the wave. Akali ends up trading against him, and this trade is really good for Akali in caps. And the reason this is really good is because if Akali trades a bit of HP for a proper lane state, it's just so much more effective on Akali's end, because while Nemesis is dueling caps, this wave is locking relative to the blue count, on the blue side wave. So this trade is really good, and again, all of this has a meaning to it, right? We attack him again, and now we've essentially locked the lane. And now, if you notice carefully, the 3rd wave is right over here. So it's about to lock, and now Nemesis is playing the lane in a very awkward space. Now, one thing in professional play that a lot happens is you're going to have support players, even roam down into mid lane while the wave is pushing back into bot lane. I don't know why. It's a Garen Yuumi. I don't know what patch this was played on, but I guess this was a thing back then. And what ends up happening is your support, and if you're a support player, and let's say you're like challenger support player, you can actually move into mid lane, shove the third wave with your mid laner so that he can get the bounce back on the fifth wave, allow him to get a recall without getting potentially ganked by a jungler on the left-hand side in this case, okay? And this is, again, just a support dynamic that you can do, and if your support is able to roam up and able to get you the bounce back, then you've essentially just won mid lane. But right now, we can just go ahead and say mid lane is completely lost. Okay, mid is pretty fucked right now. Like there's really nothing he can do. We are seeing that he's running Klepto on TF, and as you can see, his pockets are relative to where the enemy jungler is. We know that we don't win a 2v2. Now, because we don't win a 2v2, we are actually going to position ourselves onto the right-hand side of the lane, and the reason for this is because if Nocturne and the enemy jungler engage with Akali and Nemesis, they will end up losing. So they'll essentially end up just losing the trade-off, and it's going to be a lot worse. So that's why we're going to stand on the right-hand side, not position ourselves towards the left, and not actually incentivize any form of trading. We know this because we know that the enemy jungler is also on the left-hand side. And now let's say you're a challenger mid laner and you're watching this, and let's say that you don't know where the enemy jungler started. Well, there's actually a very simple fix for that. You can essentially just look at what pocket Akali is taking. Obviously, if Akali then positions herself back onto the right-hand side pocket, you can assume that the enemy jungler is somewhere here. And then again, if she's back onto the left-hand side pocket, then you can assume that the enemy jungler is somewhere here. Now, the only exception for this is if she tries to mind game you, which may happen in like the highest levels of like challenger, where she might go down to the south side pocket, forcing you parallel with the jungler, and where a gank would be possible. But in this case, it doesn't seem like that's happening anytime soon because Nemesis is choosing to take the right-hand side pocket. By the way, if there's any questions in Twitch chat, you guys got to highlight my name and then ask so I don't start reading like random stuff. And I'll try to answer any questions I have or you guys have in Twitch chat. Now here, what you're going to do is you're going to throw out red card, and you're going to fucking auto like crazy. You're going to make sure this wave is thrown into Akali, and then you're going to get a ward. Red card, auto, great, and now we're going to back off. And now I talk a lot about, hey, why do we back off prematurely when we know Akali can freeze? Well, Akali can't actually freeze this because the wave is too big. This is a very good ward timing. So now we're just going to go ahead and get a ward on the left-hand side. Probably just get a ward right over here. Yep, that's exactly where he's clicking, and this is a very standard ward because this gives you information on the scuttle fight happening in the river in a few seconds at 3:15. As we talked about, we do have lane priority at 3 minutes and 15 seconds, and this is so massive for Twisted Fate right now, where then he can essentially help Nocturne, and Akali isn't able to do anything, not to mention the priority we have up in top lane, and this also essentially gives us safety to our top laner, so he knows that the enemy jungler's routes can only be through here, through golems or whatever, but it doesn't really matter because we see Nocturne on the right-hand side assisting the gangplank, okay? So a lot of things happening here. Why does he ward here instead of deeper? Now, if he wards deeper, there is a chance he may run into the enemy jungler. Now, if he runs into the enemy jungler and he ends up taking a bad trade, he's screwed. Not necessarily screwed because he has teleport, so let me rephrase that. It's just not worth the risk. So what you essentially want to do is, it doesn't make a difference if he wards here or if he wards here. The only difference it makes is, one, he loses the CS, which he doesn't want to do that. Second of all, he may run into the enemy jungler where he may just take a face-on trade, which will not be beneficial, knowing that Nocturne and Gangplank can't actually help. We have an extremely weak left side, and that's why Nocturne doesn't actually want to be on the left-hand side of the map. In fact, this whole team composition is fucking completely atrocious. I don't know who drafted this, but not the point. So basically, what's going on right now is we already know that the enemy jungler is on the left-hand side. We don't need to drop a ward there, because if we drop a ward there, it's false safety. We already know he's there. We just need to know what routes he's taking. Let's keep playing it. This is a very interesting thing Nemesis is doing right now. And again, he wants to shove this next wave in. Yep, red card, yellow card. Now, this is actually potentially just to zone out Akali from one minion. So he's actually just going to threaten the gold card here. Yep. moves in. Akali tries to Q, has to Q this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I actually don't know if Akali's Q is the shuriken or if Akali's Q is the this thing here. Does anyone know? Can someone please explain to me? I know what the champion does, and I know how to play around it, and I know what exactly you want to be doing against it, but I don't remember which spell is on which angle. E is her flip. That's her E. Okay, thank you. Okay, perfect. Right. So that's her E, and her little cone thing is her Q. Got it. Okay. Okay. And then W. Okay, got it. Okay, so she ends up having to E here. That's fine. And now we're just simply shoving the wave, and we are going to be getting the next bounce back really soon. We're just trying to blue card. This is really good for Nemesis at this point. Yep, she can't lock this lane. There's just no way. Yep, and now we're shoving. What the fuck is this song? Jesus Christ. Now the reason we're shoving is because Nemesis has teleport. Clearly, right? Sorry. We're shoving because Akali clearly has teleport, and she's really low. We're not looking to bounce the wave back, so we're just going to hard shove this next wave into her. Seems like Akali is now forced to teleport back onto the map. We also know that at this time, the enemy jungler should be somewhere around his left-hand side. Even now, we have won the scuttle fight, so no contention on the left-hand side relative to the priority. And we also know that Akali can't really freeze this wave. Now, let's say that Akali attempts to freeze this. What's going to happen? Well, first of all, she's going to take a shit ton of minion damage. Not to mention, Nemesis has teleport. So if she opts to freeze this wave, Nemesis will literally just teleport back in, shove the next wave in, and then get the next bounce back, which will put him in a great lane state, right? That's a problem for Akali because she doesn't actually have any action into the lane. She can only react, and this is why I tell players to play mages so that you can control the lane early on from you know a very controlling standpoint. Now here, what's gonna end up happening is sure she can try to lock the wave, but because Nemesis has teleport, it's just not possible. There's too many blue minions. Now obviously, let's say that for example that this was gone. This was dead, and this was dead. Let's say this was only 3 melees. At that point, sure, you can walk into the... You can essentially walk right here, and you can then move up, kite the minions down to the north side, and then lock it here while playing north side pocket. And the reason you can do this is because we know that Nocturne's next clear outs at around 4 minutes and 15 seconds to 5 minutes and 35 seconds to potentially 6. He's going to be back onto the right-hand side, while the enemy jungler is also going to be doing the same. Therefore, now Akali can force TF into the pockets, which would be now completely diagonal to that on the right-hand side, which will then force TF, in this case Nemesis, to be in a very awkward position in the lane. But we talked about how she can't freeze, and this is the exact reason why Nemesis doesn't move into Akali, instead just leaves the lane, knowing that he has teleport. Zen Coaching, how does he manage to be in a good spot when on wave 2 was in a bad spot? Also, he got a bad trade on wave 2. He got a bad trade, but because he was able to kill the wave in time, the wave bounced back, and then he managed to just heal up overall. In a professional game, teleport is pretty important. Yeah, it's a pro game, so teleport is really, really important. I'm like scrolling up to find any other questions. Why does he ward there instead? I already answered that. Hi. Alright, cool. If all pro players know what junglers is going to do to an extent, why don't junglers just gank sporadically and then could be high risk their botch their clear? Now, okay, let me reread this because this is actually a really good question. If all professional players know what junglers are going to do to an extent, why don't junglers just gank sporadically that could just be high risk and botch their clear? Now, this is essentially, this comes back into... being able to perform the game from a physical standpoint. Just because we know where the jungler is doesn't necessarily mean that we can do anything about it. There are instances where, let's say for example, that your support ends up having to recall early, and we know that the enemy jungler has left side initiative, and we know that this wave is pushing in, and we know that our jungler has no routes on the left hand side, which then allows us to either have the enemy jungler go like this and try to hit top lane, or hit our right side jungle. In this case, we can actually send our support in pro play up into top lane to essentially 2 versus 2 and match the enemy jungler's gank, while our jungler forces the right hand side jungle. But you don't know that's, you know, like that's theoretically that makes sense, but shit happens in pro play where sometimes you can't make rotations like this. Sometimes your AD carry is not in a stance to just let the enemy's wave come into him. and just simply farm without getting potentially dove. So there are instances in pro play where just because the wave was pushing inwards was actually a mistake or a byproduct of a previous mistake done by the laner or the jungler at the time. And that's why even if you like a good jungler will know exactly where the other jungler is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to prevent some of the issues that may occur inside of the game. Like if this lane is pushing outwards and Nocturne is in nowhere near helping Gangplank out, and we know the enemy jungler is coming, there's absolutely no form of wave management that will affect or that will actually save him at that point, because that lane state is essentially a byproduct of poor play. This is actually very high level what Akali is doing. And this essentially means that she's essentially basically just tanking the 3 melees here. And as the next wave comes in, she ends up locking the wave right here. But this doesn't really do anything for us. And it puts Nemesis in maybe a dangerous timer for potentially, I would say, a few seconds while the enemy jungler is finishing his left-hand side clear and then moving back onto the right-hand side. But it doesn't really matter because Nemesis does have flash, so this is very interesting. Now, this is something that you guys can definitely do in your own games where you can just lock lanes like this, right? And again, we can go even deeper into this. And the reason, what's his name? Akali actually ends up kiting the wave all the way up here is so that one, he breaks aggro, and two, so one, he's breaking aggro, and two, he actually does not allow Nocturne to join into the lane and try to unfree, basically open the lane up. Now, let's assume that your jungler does not actually have to clear his jungle. And now if you're a jungler here and you see the mid laner doing this, please, if you're a diamond player, if you're a master player, if you're a challenger, for the love of God, just go into Akali here. You're going to win the trade. She's low health. She has 3 casters to jump on her. Do not let your mid laner end up having a, don't let your mid laner getting froze on, right? Like that's going to really like screw you over because the enemy jungler is going to have incentive to essentially hit you. Okay. So this is like a semi-freeze happening. Well, this is actually a pretty big lock, and he ends up, just teleporting back into the lane. And the reason he teleports is now he just wants to shove this wave. So here, I'm going to go ahead and say he's going to throw out red card and Q. That's what he should do. Shove the wave. Q comes out. Should just red card the damn wave and then kite it back. Maybe he's just setting up the wave. Okay, he's actually a better TF player than me, so he's actually playing it a lot better than I would have done. I would have actually already shot the wave and threw my cooldowns at it, but he actually shoved the wave properly, much better than I would have. But the philosophy is still the same. We are shoving the wave, and now we're getting the ward on our Raptors. This is fine because we know that the respawn timer is coming up, and we also know that the enemy jungler is going to be back on the right-hand side. And this is great because now we see Garen teleporting back, and we know that bot lane is pushing back into us, which means now Nocturne can essentially just kill golems, move up into Raptors, and then come back into Wolves, and again do his simple, not blue obviously, do Gromp, do his simple full clear one more time to accelerate himself into level 6, and the laners aren't in any form of danger. We're only going to cover until level 6, by the way. After level 6, the lane becomes very dynamic, very static, sorry. Would be a better word. And now we see Lee Sin on the right-hand side. It is a Lee Sin. Finally, we figured it out after fucking 5 minutes of laning. That he's trying to attack our Raptor camp, and this ward is really good. The pink got taken out just now, which sucks. We don't actually tab. Now here you want to tab. Now if you tab and you see that Lee Sin is post 24 CS, we know that he finished his left side clear, and we know that he's actually also done a few camps on the right hand side. Now obviously if he's post 30 CS, we know that both these camps are gone, meaning that his Raptors are going to respawn soon, or he's potentially looking for a Dragon Call, or he's potentially looking for a Scuttle. And Dragon Call again is doable because of the wave pushing back into our bot lane. Although it would be kind of risky because this is also the same time when we will be very close to level 6, so there is a level of response, and then because this is pro play, you would want to also entertain the teleport plays as well, okay? Which would really fucking suck if top lane's in danger, because it is a losing matchup. And as you can see, Nemesis has no incentive to try to hit Akali. He's waiting for the wave to come in, and he's just going to queue. He's going to queue the first 2 waves there. He's going to get that minion, completely messes up, loses his CS, rest in peace his Twisted Fate. That is okay, though, not a big deal. We are just going to essentially keep the wave here, not try to do anything. Caps takes it and wins a very short trade, immediately Wing, and then backing off to not get any return damage. And at this point, just red card the wave, okay? Or you can blue card it and freeze it, either way. Or you can Q it. Fucking literally doesn't matter. Just shove the wave. Shove the wave and get level 6. Not that hard, obviously. He is just slow pushing it. He's not shoving it extremely hard because he is not level 6 yet. Just waiting for level 6, and as he hits level 6, all we're going to do then is just perma-shove, and we're going to try to make sure we are roaming around the side lanes here. Overall, his play is pretty 10 out of 10. Nice. Alright, now he's level 6. Akali tries to freeze, but at this point, I know that on Twisted Fate you have to run, what do you call it, those materializers, and with that, if you kill three melees, I'm pretty sure you're able to essentially one-shot waves at like level 7 or 8 or something like that. I'm not too sure, so don't quote me on that one. But yeah, so now essentially Nemesis is controlling the wave, and now all his mission is essentially just to clear the wave and then constantly funnel pressure and both physical pressure and psychological pressure onto the side lanes, allowing Nocturne to hit level 6 and then potentially duo ganking with Nocturne down into bot lane. Now we can get a little bit specific to professional play here. But if we duo gank down into bot lane, we double gank them down, and we end up taking this tower, we can end up causing Garen and Yuumi to get the lane swap onto the gangplank, allowing our right side jungle to be extremely warded by our jungler. So what's his name? Gangplank now has safety as he comes down to the bottom of the map, where now he can just constantly have gold funneled into him. Where then in professional play, if the enemy opts to shove this next wave in, and if or a bounce back does end up occurring, we can essentially just freeze the lane right under the tower, which then Gangplank will constantly funnel in gold, and now this entire lane is dark and black for the enemy, where now the enemy can only play on the left-hand side. And now because we're playing with a relatively decent scaling composition, like GP, Twisted Fate, Nocturne, we can actually just do absolutely nothing. And the reason we're not going to do any, and the reason we do absolutely nothing is because we are playing from blue side. And the openings onto Baron, relative to the enemy's team composition, cannot respond onto our blue side to blue side to Baron attacks, where now we can simply just scale up, eventually get the Baron without the enemy team being able to win, and we actually would just simply win the game that way. So this is all really just decided off of really just one simple freeze. Okay, this is essentially how what's his name? Fucking what team is this? God damn it, G2. Or, yeah, this is G2, right? This is essentially how G2 wants to win. That was kind of troll, but he dies anyway here. Nice. Yeah, first blood goes on to Nemesis here. Very good dodge. GP flash ult comes out, and now it looks like Mordekaiser is also going to be fucking going to base. Yellow card again, and the game's over. All right, great. Next game, let's go to Dopa now. Okay, are there any questions about that? How do you remember all this info when you play, though? You have to practice. It's one of the hardest things trying to remember. I guarantee that if I was able to do this live, I would be challenger. Like, top challenger. But I'm not. I'm not able to do this shit live. That's the problem. You want to be able to do exactly what I talked about in real time. Well, not all of it, because I go extremely deep, but you want to be able to do at least, like, the surface level of what I'm talking about in real time, and I guarantee that you're going to become a lot better. This is something that I struggle with as well. The fact that I can't do this in game is why I am the elo that I am. Right? Now the only difference between me and a lot of other players is not just a lot of players, but the only difference between you guys and a lot of other players along with me is that we're able to actually understand these things. We have the needle, even though it's in the haystack. Unfortunately, for a lot of these players in League of Legends, they don't even know that a needle exists. So they're kind of just fucking rummaging through a haystack, trying to find something that they don't even know they don't even know what to look for. And that's why they fucking resort to pro guides and shit. Right? But this is the stuff that actually makes you better, and, like, I haven't heard many people talk about this. Like, this is not talked about enough, and that's the problem. Can I do a jungle VOD? Not tonight, but definitely later. Okay, so let's go on to Dopa. Now, I don't know how much information this guy stores in his fucking forehead. Clearly a lot. But let's see what he's thinking. Let's see what he's thinking. I am out of water. Holy shit. This is bad. Is pro guides bad? Yes. Don't use pro guides. Don't use gamer sensei. Don't use fucking all this nonsense. He has a lot of room for storage. That is true. What do I think about top lane? Should I preseason swap to mid? I feel like top lane is very useless. Not nearly low. If you're low, top is probably the best bet. Now he's versus Cassiopeia. Now, okay, what do we do? So what is Dopa doing? All right, so Dopa's doing something really simple. He is testing if this Cassiopeia knows what she's doing. That's why he opts to stand inside of the casters, and the reason he does this is because he might assume that the Cassiopeia has opened the lane with Q. And if she opens with Q, then Cassiopeia essentially ends up hitting the wave and hitting Dopa's HP at the same time, playing into her mission, essentially going into level 2. Now, because we assume that Cassiopeia potentially, if she started E, she's not going to do anything. And she's not going to E us, because if she E's us, it's a single target ability in the sense where these casters are then going to jump onto, what's his name? Fucking Cassiopeia. That's not good. I hit a plateau at D1, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you're Diamond 1, I would say, yeah, swap to mid, I guess. Anyways, he ends up... Wait, what the hell did he just do? Hold on, I wasn't even looking, guys. Wait up. Does Dopa want the wave to go into him? Yes, he does want the wave to go into him, but he's going to push early on. He ends up locking a yellow card, or a gold card here, which isn't really optimal. A red card would be so much more optimal, and the reason a red card would be more optimal is because, one, he would get the comet stack. Second of all, he would end up AoEing all 3 of these minions. Well, not 3 of them, actually. He would end up AoEing this one, and maybe this one, which is good because he wants to push the wave in anyway. Unfortunately, he only has a 33% chance of actually hitting a red card. In this case, it was a gold card, which is actually potentially probably the worst one to hit, because I'm pretty sure the blue card does a lot more damage than the gold one, or than the red one actually. Comet stack? Yeah, not comet stack. Sorry, I just meant comet proc. Comet basically it doesn't stack, it procs. So he would end up getting the comet proc, and then he would end up getting the push onto the minions. With the blue card, he would just end up getting the keystone, and on top of that, he would end up getting the HP, the slight HP lead, because of just the sheer amount of blue card versus the Cassiopeia E. But a red card would be absolutely optimal here. However, there is a 33% chance that that's happening. Sorry, I shouldn't say stack. Comet does not stack, by the way. That kind of came out wrong. And now we are just autoing, and the reason we're autoing is because we want to shove. And now here, what would be the right call? We're very simple. We're gonna auto, and we're gonna red card the wave. It's really easy, actually. Just gonna auto and red card the wave. God damn it, do it already. There we go. That was a little slow, but it's okay. Ends up kiting back down to avoid minion aggro, knowing that Cassiopeia can't respond. And now just waits, and now all he's doing, again, he's gonna try to red card again, and he's gonna hit Cassiopeia as Cassiopeia is going in for this minion right here. This allows us to essentially not take any damage return from Cassiopeia, and on top of that, shove the wave while AoEing the backline minions. Okay? Blue card ends up coming out. Not the most optimal. It's still not that bad though. We still want to play the same idea of we want to hit Cassiopeia as Cassiopeia hits the minion. Blue card, again, I talk about this a lot in my VODs. The next click is going to be back. We're getting the hell out of here after we hit Cassiopeia, because we know that Cassiopeia can then respond with her E, even though it would be a complete waste of mana. It's still doable. And that Cassiopeia will not be hit by any of our minions, because we are sitting at 2 melees, 3 melees, and 3 casters. So none of these minions are actually going to jump onto Cassiopeia. And now, again, we're playing it back. Click back immediately, and auto, and then auto again. And now here, again, we just want to red card the backline wave. Now, something really interesting that you can do on Twisted Fate in order to actually shove the wave, and you can do this at level 2, which we'll talk about in a second. This is really bad because our teammates end up messing up in the bot side. You can tell Dopa's kind of ranting about it, but it's okay. And now here, the game plan kind of changes. We notice that Cassiopeia is hard shoving the wave. So now one thing we can really just start doing is if Cassiopeia opts to kill these 2 minions, we can let these 3 melees jump into the wave or into the tower, die with the tower. However, then we can lock the lane using these 3 casters. So let's see what ends up happening. So right now, Cassiopeia doesn't opt to immediately shove. He cues the wave, kites down to the south side, and now as you can see, the wave ends up locking right on these 2 minions. Or on these 3 casters and 1 melee. But ends up queuing again, and the reason he's queuing is because the red wave is too big. So that's why he tries to hit both Cassiopeia and the backline minions at the same time. And now all Dopa is trying to do is try to essentially damage the wave enough to keep it around this angle until Echo can potentially either do a drive-by gank back to the left side jungle, or he just somehow finishes his clear and then tries to then hit Cassiopeia from the left-hand side. Okay? Are there any questions in Twitch chat? Am I streaming more often now? Yeah, I'm streaming pretty much every day. I wonder if Dopa thinks he's better than Faker. I don't know. Dopa said Faker is one of the best. Is pro macro more difficult? Well, I don't think you really need to know anything about professional macro. It's a different game. How do you find out when to touch the first wave? Well, Cassiopeia can break waves. If a champion is able to break waves, you want to be able to auto first to try to get level 2. Because you know that you can't immediately get like hard freezes. You can get soft freezes in mid lane. And the reason you get soft freezes is because the shortage of like the lane length. The mid lane is very short. Okay. We blue card again. And again, we're just trying to keep 1 or 2 minions on the blue side. Sorry, so on the red side. Sorry. So right now, let's count the minions. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 reds. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 blues. Okay, so this is actually a little too big. I think we should just go and do 6 reds instead. So he might actually shove the wave a little more. And now, what's going to end up happening is we're going to continue to level the lane until the 4th wave arrives. And now we can lock the 4th wave, and we can play into Cassiopeia, keep dueling her, use our boots and her potions, and then try to attack her mana bar. And if Cassiopeia is forced to play inside of an awkward lane state somewhere around here with a low enough mana bar, the lane is essentially over because she has very little escape. So Dope is actually playing this lane relatively well. I was gonna say something else, but I completely just forgot. So if the champ you are playing can't break waves, you should always aim to hit level 2 first. No, if the champion you are playing against can break a wave, you want to try to hit level 2 in most cases. Okay? So Cassiopeia can break waves because she is a ranged champion with relatively okay wave clear. Okay? But you got to realize when you're playing against Cassiopeia, you're not just playing against her health bar, right? Her health bar is not as relevant as her mana bar. Her mana bar is essentially her health bar. So you want to play against mana for mana, right? So if you trade off, let's say 20% of mana on TF for 20% of mana on Cassiopeia, you're winning out. Because you have blue card. She doesn't have anything like that. Even though she can get mana back from the last hitting E, it's not enough. Because she requires tier. The champion requires a lot more. Why was Dopa giving Cass the opportunity to queue him and Caster's level 1? Wouldn't that lead to a faster level 2 for Cass? It would. But he was essentially just testing the level of Cassiopeia. So he wanted to see what Cassiopeia started, and then he wanted to play in accordance to that. It's actually a misplay, but some high-level players do that just to test their opponents, to level them for the rest of the lane, even if they take a slight disadvantage. In which then Dopa knows, he wants to know what he can actually get away with versus what he can't. Although it could have just been a mistake, right? We don't know for sure, right? And now here, as you can see, Dopa's autoing the wave, as we talked about, because there is a red side minion advantage. We want to try to hit the wave as much as possible before the 4th minion arrives. The 4th wave actually arrives. Right? We see Echo on Raptors. We're just going to constantly play around that. Be next to him. Don't try to do anything. Now, this is what I was talking about. Cassiopeia ended up shoving the wave in time, and now the wave ends up essentially locking for a very short period, but it's actually pushing back into Cassiopeia. Gets the cannon. Continues to shove. Notice how Cassiopeia actually is queuing. She's queuing for a very awkward reason. She should not really ever queue Dopa there because he's not actually going for CS, so she needs to actually wait. A few misplays coming in from Cassiopeia. She's just wasting mana for pretty much no reason there. And that is just very poor play. We're still waiting. Blue card, try to get the mana back. And now Again, we are playing 3 blues to 2 reds, meaning the wave is going to push into Cassiopeia. And now what we're going to actually try to do is we're going to try to slow push into her while avoiding her as much as possible, because we need to actually try to keep the wave in this angle here where it's going to be pretty much safe for us for the remainder of the lane until we can hit level 6, in which then with sufficient amounts of points in queue, we can just fight. This is a little weird. Hold on, let's replay that. So now this is actually very interesting. Now, why does Dopa jump onto her like this? So Cassiopeia, and this again goes back to what I was talking about, the mana for mana thing. Cassiopeia is at, let's say, 40% mana. Let's say 45% mana. Dopa's mana doesn't matter because he's playing Twisted Fate. He can just blue card the wave. So now, if Dopa essentially trades into Cassiopeia right now, and they both trade mana for mana, Twisted Fate ends up winning out. He can then slow push the wave, throw it, and then recall on the 6th wave, coming back at level 5, and then hard pushing after like level 6 essentially, where then he can just pressure down Cassiopeia. This is huge. Cassiopeia responds with cleanse, tries to jump back onto Dopa, but it doesn't matter because, as you can see, there is a mana disadvantage, and he doesn't realize. And I think this guy's actually a cast main. Now he has to flash. Do you know how much to thin out one wave when it comes to you? Yeah, well, you have to feel it, or you can just count the wave. If you're new, just count the minions. If you're like experienced, just you can feel it, do it like through just minion count. Okay, I don't know what he's doing. I think he's having a fucking, let's not talk about that. Anyways, Olaf was obviously on the left hand side, and now this is screwed. Now this is screwed. This lane is absolutely over for Twisted Fate, and Dopa is really, really sad. He is not happy, and he is very much malding right now. And the reason he's malding is because, well, as you can see, this lane is frozen. It's over. Dopa's in trouble. Now his entire game plan at level 6 is fucking destroyed, because the professional jungler here has a giga brain, and then he decided to just show up. And this is the one thing that NA junglers don't understand. EU junglers don't understand. You can protect and win lanes by doing shit like this. Now, if this guy was an NA jungler, guess what he would be doing? Alright, can you guys take a wild guess? Alright, he'd be getting executed on fucking golems. He'd be dying to his golems camp right now. If this guy was an NA player, he would be dying to golems. Alright? If he was an EU player, or sorry, Krugs, whatever you call it. Golems, Krugs, rocks, fucking boulders, whatever you guys want to call them. Right? He has to be at Fountain. So now, since this is a professional jungler playing for a professional team, he's gonna sit here and he's just gonna lock the lane. Cassiopeia is gonna come back, and she's gonna have an amazing lane state. And now Twisted Fate doesn't have teleport, so he can't break the wave. He's forced to recall. Now, what do you do as TF here? Well, you can jump, so we can run into Olaf and die, shove the wave. Sure, that'll work. Or we can just recall now. Look how sad he is. He's saying, "Get out of here! I need to shove the wave." And this is Olaf. This is Olaf being a proper jungler. And now it looks like Twisted Fate or Dopa is going to fight him inside of the wave, and fucking Olaf knows this, right? So now Olaf is getting the hell out of here. Dopa's so angry, and now he's gonna. All right, and that's the end of the VOD review, guys. I will see you guys next time. Fuck. Oh no. Anyways, the lane state's still looking pretty ugly for Dopa, but he got a kill. Cassio shows up. Cassio will freeze this lane. We're gonna fast forward, come back into the lane state. We're gonna grab tier 2 boots. He went Swifties. Do not do this right now. This is not a patch where you run Swifties. You can go Mercs or something against him. And then he just goes down bot lane because he knows he can't contest against Cassiopeia. So then, because he knows this, the correct call is to just run it down bot lane because he sees the wave pushing in. And if the wave wasn't pushing in, and let's say in your games your bot lane is fucking already inting, then you just simply wait for the wave to come in. You see if Raptors are up. If Raptors aren't up, maybe you can drop a ward. If you still don't have a ward to drop, then fucking go tab out, go on YouTube, check out a video. The wave will eventually come back into you, and then you just gotta farm it out. All right, man. Runs it down bot, hits the plant, Scuttle is up, we know what camps are up, we know Olaf is going to return back onto the right hand side, matching Echo, tries to Q, can't freeze this. I should be a fucking caster. And yep, now we're about to be level 6. This is a really shitty lane phase for Dopa, but it's okay. And now we're just shoving. Yep, shove, get another ward, Raptors are up, great, okay, come back into the lane. And now the game plan is very simple. Get level 6, constantly shove, lane, pressure, go into Fog of War, force the enemy to back, throw a shit ton of pressure to the side lanes, and carry the game with your jungler. Alright, that is it for tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in for the Dopa VOD. I will post this on, or the Dopa versus Nemesis VOD. I'll post this on